Hello, everybody. Good afternoon. I'm John Self. Welcome to Office Hours, a weekly group coaching session. I'm John Self. I'm the founder and chief content officer and chief cook and bottle washer for our career advisory service. We are based in Tyler, Texas, and we run an online membership group subscription. We have online courses, and we do one-on-one coaching. So we're delighted you're with us today, and we've got I think, an important kind of coaching session we want to share with you. It's all the time, and I talk about this a lot, so I apologize for being that proverbial cracked record for those of you who are younger and don't appreciate the reference. In the old days when we had vinyl records, if one got scratched, sometimes it would just keep repeating itself and repeating itself. My wife says that's that I brought that trait with me to the marriage. Anyway, that aside, we want to talk today about the little things that trip up applicants. And these are little things that some people are going to view as being kind of touchy, maybe none of my business. But I got to tell you, I talk to a lot of people every week and every month. And these are things that people are beginning to talk about with greater regularity. And it's happening because we have intense competition. The number of applicants is shifting, from the employer. It's really shifting, and a lot of it has to do with employer scrutiny. There are too many people looking for few jobs in the executive and management level, and so companies are really putting on the magnifying glass and the green eye shade and really paying attention to their hiring, and they need to. Because for years, recruiters and internal, external, they had a 40% failure rate within 18 months of people brought in from the outside of the organization. A huge cost to companies. And quite frankly, it happens and nothing's changed in that number since the mid 1990s. And the reason for that is because the recruiting is essentially transactional. People view it as a time to hire, fee per professional fee. Let's get this done. The client wants to get the person there, or the candidates want to get a decision. Let's move this along. And the reality is, we're not hiring people, we're hiring solutions. As a recruiter, I wasn't recruiting individuals. I was recruiting somebody who could solve the problem. And so until recruiters become more transformational, we're going to continue to have these bad numbers. The only numbers that are worse than the recruiter numbers are the employee engagement numbers. So let's move forward at today's coaching session. Well, if you've been with me, if you were with me yesterday at Lunch and Learn, we talked about some of these same subjects, but they are important. We're going to talk about some of them again. First of all, you all sense that we're about ready to go through a tectonic market shift. The executive job competition is extremely intense, and the people I talk to, none of them are saying that this is going to turn around with the new president. If it's Trump, the economy is going to go great. If it's Harris, the economy is going to whatever. I mean, the president of the United States is not going to have any impact on the executive and management hiring, because companies now realize they didn't need as many people as they had, and it's all about profits and bonuses and share price and return to the investors. And so that's just making the competition intense. And one of the things I would really encourage you to do is be mindful of that and be very intentional when you start doing things with your applying for jobs, networking. You've got to be very, very intentional. And you've got to be very strategic to think about how you don't want to use people, because networking is all about, hey, let me know if I can help you. Make it really sincere, because that's the way you build strong relationships. Anyway, candidates that do get through are under an incredibly powerful microscope, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. There are incredible career management implications to all the changes that we're seeing line up. And, it's sort of like you see the storms out in the Gulf, out in the Atlantic lining up, and you think, oh my goodness, it's going to be a busy hurricane season, and it has been. The same thing is happening in career management and in those things in the arena that affect your career. You can just see them lining up now. And when they break through, it's going to be tough. Now, the economy, the reports are still good. And matter of fact, it's really remarkable. The report yesterday on GDP was really remarkable, but we're seeing some slowing. and it's not anything anybody's going to talk about because really it's people just people don't believe the numbers, and so the only time they really talk about it is if it's bad enough to club your opponent, your political opponent. But the one thing I will tell you is there are going to be sweeping management implications. So if I were, and I do, if I advise my people that are our clients, it's time to adjust your career management perspective. Everybody, their default position is the rearview mirror. Now, people say, no, 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 no. I like change, but something that we don't do as frequently, like job search or like interviewing, we kind of think of in the past, the last time we did it. That's our default position. And that's not a good place to be. You need to be proactive and reshape how you're looking at your career and what it's going to be like going forward. Because you can waste a lot of time and waste a lot of money trying to recreate the things that you did in the past. And in your mind and your soul kind of wants to go, look, that's worked for me in the past. I'm going to keep doing it. And I'll break through. Well, you may not. And that's the important thing. For example, we talked yesterday about a recruiter that reported that she posted a job. Within 30 minutes, she had 100 applications. Middle of the afternoon, she had it was 200 or 300, and by the next morning, when they arrived at the office, there were 400 applicants. She said, "I could not process 400 people. We took the job summary down, and we quickly just sorted through the stuff." And we got rid of probably 95% of all the resumes, and we didn't even have time to notify them. And that's a big complaint. People talk about this all the time. I submitted my resume. I never heard anything from the company. Well, yeah, that's not good. And you'd think that somebody could create a Zapier response, but I call hospitals all the time, and I hear some of that you call their HR department, and they say, now, if you submitted an application, we will not respond to that application unless we're going to talk to you. Well, why can't you create an automation? But very few of them do. Some do, but it's the minority. So when you have that many applicants for one job, what does that tell you? Well, the competition is intense. That's the one thing it tells you. But the other thing it tells you is that you're going to have your A game in order to be successful. And part of the problem, if you don't have a network, then you're forced to apply online. We're going to talk about some alternatives to that. But that's what everybody does. They just start trying to submit as many resumes to many places as possible. The old blunderbuss scatter shooting approach, that does not work. You waste time. One of the problems now in the job post, because the job hiring is beginning to slow, is that 60% of the best jobs are not listed on the websites, and those jobs that are listed, a lot of them are phantom. They're not active. They're not hiring. If you apply for it, nobody sees your resume. And there's nothing on the posting that says, hey, if you want to waste your time, click apply. So a lot of companies are just using them as placeholders. I understand kind of the marketing and the image and the brand perspective, but as a applicant, if somebody really helps applicants, that's just a tough thing. It's harmful to them, because one of the things I'll tell you about looking for a job now, if you're an executive or manager, is that it's bone crushing rejection. And there are people that are getting so depressed because they've never had this much rejection in a job search before. When you have really top-notch people and you're into 12 or 14 months in their search, some of that was their fault. They took 4 or 5 months trying to look in the rearview mirror and do it the old way. But a lot of it is they get down to the last 1 or 2 people and they're not picked. What I would suggest, and I said a minute ago, we need to talk about this. You have to create your own opportunity. So here's what I'm going to suggest to you today. If you are in a market, regardless of your industry, all right, and you have companies that you think you would like to work for. Now, some people have skills that can cross multiple industries. Others are very industry specific. Okay. So if you're, whatever applies to you, pick the companies that you like and you would like to work for. And if you're geographically restricted, then understand that may take you longer to find a job. But I understand. I mean, that's things like that are just part of life. So what you want to do once you picked out, I would hope you'd have 5 or 6 or 8 or 10 companies in a region or in a 4 or 5 state region or whatever it is that you're limiting your geographic reference, that you start contacting the organizations that you would like to work for. First thing you do is go to their website, find out who's who, and a lot of times the website lists the C-suite. You're not really going to try to connect with the C-suite because most of them won't. They're busy and they just don't do it. A lot of those guys and women, they have their assistants do that. Well, so that's not really helping you. So what do you want to do? What you want to do is then go into LinkedIn and start posting and looking in the companies you've listed and try to see how many of their employees are on LinkedIn. And when you do that, you're going to be able to find people like they say, oh, a manager of employment for one of the companies. You want to connect with him right away. HR, Chief Human Resource Officer, probably not because they are bombarded anyway. Find people that you can connect with and make a difference. Find people you can connect with and have a reasonable expectation that you can form a relationship. Now, you can't be a stalker, and there's ways to avoid that. But you want to find people all throughout the organization, your peers, maybe one level up, that you can send a message. I'd like to connect with yours is an organization that I admire and would like to work for one day. And, if here's what I do, and real quickly, here's what I do. And if you ever hear about anything, I would just be thrilled if you wouldn't mind sharing that with me, because this is it's an opportunity that I really want, is an important stepping point in my career. A lot of people will help you. Some people will not. And in that message, you never make a connection. Never make a connection unless you use the custom connection message. Okay, you have 300 words, and what you need to do is explain why you want to connect, and then briefly talk about your value. Be very, very succinct. And say, and thanks so much. And if I can ever do anything for you, please know that I would be honored, or something like that. Be sincere. Always in networking, you always want to offer the next person you're connecting with opportunity to help them. I try to do this, and I fail miserably all the time. But it is because I didn't get into the habit earlier in life. Nobody took the time to tell me. But when you're having a conversation with anybody, a good thing to do before you hang up, especially if it's somebody that's, that you can form a good relationship with, or that you might have a mutually beneficial relationship later in your career. You always say, before I hang up, is there anything I can do for you? A simple phrase, but it carries some weight. And if you do that and do it sincerely, that registers points with the person if they've got a soul at all. So what I'm saying basically is you've got to create your own opportunities. There are other sources to get information. If you're in healthcare, or if you're in accounting, a lot of those areas have state or regional associations, and a lot of those people have directories with email addresses, et cetera. And that is a way to help you identify people that you can reach out to in an organization to say, yours is an organization I'd really like to work for. Your values, your things that you're doing in the marketplace really align with the things I believe in, and I think that's so powerful. If there's anything I can do, here's what I have done briefly, and if you hear of anything, I would be honored if you would refer my name to HR or to the recruiter. And that if you do, it's not going to work every time. I mean, it's just like anything else in life. That's a way to get by that applying online. At least you're bypassing the bots to a certain extent. So consider that as a strategy that you might want to give some time thinking about. If you have any questions, you can email me at john@johngself.com, and I'll be happy to give you some more information. Or you can schedule a free call with me on my webpage. Go to the bottom and click Talk to John, and I'll be happy to share 30 minutes of my time with you and answer any of your questions. No sales pitch, just answers, just information. So let's talk about the reason the shifts are occurring, the reason that I'm quite frankly concerned, not necessarily for me, but for a lot of people that I work with and a lot of people I know. It's the threat of automation. Now, Mark Cuban and several other people have been talking about this for the last year or so. Mark Cuban's talks to a lot of corporate CEOs. He's a very likable guy, unlike one of the other wealthy people in the world that has an EV company. Um, People enjoy Mark Cuban. They enjoy being around him. They liked what he did with his broadcast.com and how he did he was a very savvy trader, so he protected and got a lot of the money because he didn't stay in the stock too long. When he had a chance to get out, he hedged his position, and then was able to get out and claim almost all or even more than what he sold the company for. So he's a very savvy guy. People appreciate him because he's a nice guy and very affable. And they talk to him, and they share ideas and share information. And there is a lot of CEOs that will always take his call. And his comment is, look, within the next, I don't know, he says 3, 5, 7, 10 years, there are going to be 5 to 10 million people that lose their jobs. And he said the bad part of this is that some of these lower level people where it's going to impact first, they don't have skills that can be applied anyplace else. They're doing the job. So what happens to them? Well, in the 1980s, in the 90s, we really got a wild hair for global trade, and then everybody started offshoring jobs because they could save money and make more bonus and make their shareholders happy. The service was terrible a lot of times, and I call Microsoft service in India. Well, I call their service here, and was transferred to their India call center. And, I think 5 out of 8 times I got a number that was disconnected. Okay. So, but it became very fashionable. And you always knew when you were talking to somebody in the Philippines because they would call you Mr. John or Ms. March or whatever. That's just a cultural thing. And when you know the culture like I do, having been there several times, it's an interesting place, and they're interesting people. But anyway, the AI impact, several people have said it's going to have the same impact on our economy, much in the same way that the introduction of electricity did when Thomas Edison, really perfected that, and they started, installing electric lights. I think Los Angeles was the first city, the small city of Los Angeles was the first city in the country to do that, and which is amazing. So, but that's the impact it's going to have. If you think about the life before electricity and life after electricity, think about that incredible transition, the incredible impact, how people's lives change so dramatically. Now, think about your career and think about where are you exposed, okay? And is 100% of your job exposed? Well, if you are a copywriter, or if you're somebody who's an account payable clerk, or even an account payable supervisor, yeah, your job's probably at risk. Okay, now is the time to begin making some plans to shift and do something that's not going to be what we call AI sensitive. Now, the other thing I want to tell you is that when you start thinking about the impact, we all remember what happened when we paid attention to global trade, and because we were free market and everybody got excited, the impact was we lost thousands of jobs. I think 500 in just manufacturing alone since 2000. Now, that number is probably higher. I think it's a lot higher, quite frankly. But we lost automotive jobs. We lost manufacturing plants. We lost mills. We lost everything. We lost so much. Now, that was more of a trade issue. The problem is, if we had not been really pushed forward with global trade, there were incredible implications, geopolitical implications. If the United States was the standalone island, we could have gotten isolated, and we could have had grave economic consequences because the cost of goods would have gone through the roof. However, one of the things we did not do, we did not factor in what happens to the people. Now, that's outrageous. It's almost unforgivable, but that's what happened. And if you want to know why so many people in America are angry today and they feel forgotten, they feel left out, it's because the government never paid attention. They were look at what we've done, and we're getting all this trade, and we're getting goods and services for less money, and Americans are able to buy more with less money, so it's good. Okay, sometimes when you have those great, societal gains, people get hurt. And one of the things I think government has to do is be sure that the playing field is level. Because if you turn around to those companies and say, "What are you going to do for these people?" You're going to hear nothing, crickets. And so I just think that the government should not be in all things at all times. But when you do something like this, it has an incredible consequences. So this is the concept we're talking about. These are the consequences we're talking about. And as a manager or an executive, do a SWOT analysis. What part of my job could be made more efficient to free me up to do other things? And there are going to be some executives that are in that category. What part of my job is going to be pulled away from me and could result in lower pay or lower title, and a step back in my career? You just have to be honest with yourself. Okay. Don't blithely say it's not going to happen. All that's just a bunch of phooey. Did you know that in 2021, J.B. Hunt, one of the largest trucking logistics companies in the United States, did a test of driverless trucks between Houston and Dallas? They delivered over 825,000 pounds of freight without incident on schedule. Without incident on schedule. So that means that now shipping is going to be more efficient and it's going to drive costs down somewhat. The problem is there are 4.5 million Americans that drive for a living. Today, this week in Los Angeles, Phoenix, and San Francisco, a company called Waymo is doing about, between the three cities, 100,000 paid rides in driverless Jaguars without incident. So what I'm saying is, this sounds so far off. It sounds so ridiculous. There was a cartoon. The little girl said, "Daddy, I tried to get the truck driver to honk his horn, but there's nobody driving the truck." Well, that's sort of silly, but listen, that's kind of where we're going. And so don't make the mistake that a lot of those manufacturing people didn't see it coming because nobody had the courtesy, nobody had the integrity, none of those companies did, to tell their people, look, we're gonna try to help you. This is gonna happen. We have to do it or we're not gonna be in business. But we're gonna try to help you. We're gonna try to figure out other things we can do. And we'll try to help you get training. We'll try to help you relocate for other jobs. Okay, so these are things that are just societal issues, they're social issues, they're policy issues that are larger than your job. Okay, but you're going to fit into that equation. So you kind of have to start thinking about it today. So you need to understand the analysis to your career. What is it going to do to me, if anything? If you're a lower level manager, lower quartile, you probably need to make some decisions within the next, this is not something that you say, "Oh, it's coming tomorrow, I'm going to change." No. There are going to be some jobs that's what you do. And what else? Now, what can you do? The one thing you do well and that you've been paid well for is no longer available anywhere. What are you going to do? A lot of people are looking at buying businesses. There's $14.4 billion of assets in baby boomers, people like me, who have part of their retirement invested in the baby boom, that company that they built. There's a woman by the name of Cody Sanchez. I've mentioned her several times on the streams. And she's helping people who never thought about buying a business, didn't want to go into that kind of debt and take that kind of risk. She's showing them how to do it without having to invest too much money, using owner financing and some other clever tricks. And she's been very, very successful. During the pandemic, and by the way, it's not if we're going to have another, it's when. During the pandemic, a couple of guys in Austin were laid off. They didn't know what they were going to do, didn't know how they were going to support themselves. And they were walking through the neighborhood one afternoon, smoking cigars, I think, or something like that. I don't otherwise want to, walking at my age, walking without doing something you can't do in the house seems kind of a waste. Anyway, let's see. Anyway, so they saw all these service trucks. There were plumbers and house cleaning services and lawn services and all of these there said it was probably 8 or 10 trucks in the neighborhood, and they were still working because they were essential workers. And so for $143 they started a company called Pink. And Pink is a window washing company. Not very glamorous, has a low entry point for a business, and this next year they anticipate making $1 million. So, and they're scaling it now across the state. They are good-looking uniforms. They have strict rules about smoking on the job and how you dress and how you act and customer service. And they allow the customers to schedule on computers. And that's the interesting thing about a lot of these businesses. If you're in a situation where you just having trouble finding a job and you need to make a change, okay, you know, some of these small businesses that you can get into have not been disrupted. They're kind of mom and pop operators. So there's an opportunity, even if there's competition in the space, there's opportunity to do it better, disrupt, and get more business. So those are the kinds of conversations you need to have, and you're not going to have them without doing the research and the homework. Don't find yourself in the position that some of those people in 1980s and 90s found themselves in, sitting at home with no hope, and the government turned their back after the meager unemployment went out. Now, this was a stunning quote. I saw him give the presentation in I think he was in Dubai. I have a great colleague there, Ron Thomas, who is a CHRO consultant in Dubai, former Martha Stewart's former CHRO. We've been acquainted for a long time. Great guy, and if you're looking for some interesting conversation, check out his CEO series on Strategy Focus Group on YouTube at 8 a.m. on Friday, and that's a Central Time. He has some interesting guests. Last week, his guest was an auto mechanic that age 51 became a physician, and now he's an emergency physician. But it's a fascinating story. Elon Musk told these guys sitting in this room in Dubai, I believe, or it was either Dubai or Doha, said at some point, governments will be forced to consider making subsistence payments to workers impacted by AI. At some point, they're going to be forced to make subsistence payments to people who have lost their jobs, who have no hope of finding a job, and the subsistence payments will be sure they don't starve. And they can at least maintain some level of living. Now, that is kind of scary. It's concerning because that's a huge expense. And for a country like the U.S., which is already heavily leveraged in debt, how are we going to respond? Okay, that's an interesting concept. Think about how a big country that's already leveraged in debt is going to respond. Now, apply that same concept to your own life, your own career, your own finances. You've got to start thinking ahead. Because when the changes do come, they're going to come fast and furious. There was a very successful hospital management company, had a crappy reputation in terms of how they treated their employees. But if you were an officer and made a lot of money, you loved them. And if you were a CEO who was expected to jump through hoops and then got fired, you didn't care for them too much. But the CEO who really built the company, he was not the founder, but he built the company. The CEO said, well, all these changes and trying to push people to outpatient care and this diminishing of inpatient care. We've run hospitals a long time. We understand this business really, really well. And we'll when it starts changing seriously, we'll make the change. And then while he wasn't looking, he suddenly found himself in a bind. He bought another hospital company because some investor was bugging him, some hedge fund guy. So he bought a company called HMA, full of problems, full of legal issues and entanglements with fraud and abuse. And he almost sunk community health systems. And it is a small portion of what it used to be. It was at the time, it was the largest for-profit hospital management company in the United States. It was surpassed HCA. But because a guy said, I can see it coming, I'll be prepared, and he wasn't, and he wrecked his company. And how he managed to keep his job for another 3 to 5 years is beyond me. Here's what's going to happen. As more jobs, go away, as more people come into the marketplace because of layoffs, they've had a performance issue and lost their job, or a company closed, you're going to find that every place you go, there's an overabundance of applicants. So this is forcing employers that aren't going to hire, they can be very, very selective. And you're already starting to see hints that they're taking longer to make decisions, which drives applicants crazy. It already took too long anyway. And I always tell people the job search is going to take a lot longer than you think it is. You're going to see more in-depth vetting. When you have a success rate in recruiting that 40% of all the people you place are gone within 18 months, good cow. So companies that are really trying to get on top of this issue are going to be doing more in-depth vetting. Why are they able to do that? Because they have high-speed automation, machines that can do background checks automatically. You don't have to hire a background company. They contract with people who can just do these record searches really quick. They are able to vet everything. So, years ago, people used to lie about their college degrees all the time because it was a manual checking process, and a lot of companies just didn't do it. Okay, and so it was not always the case that you could get away with it, but there were some big time people that got big time embarrassed because they lied about their college degrees. I think there was even a major football coach that got caught because he said he had a degree and he did not. One of the other things you're going to see is more rigorous interviewing, and that's something we always did in our company. I would spend 2 to 3 hours with candidates, and people say, "Well, that doesn't make any sense. You can't be profitable doing that. You got to be back out on the road looking for more business." And I said, the client didn't hire me for me to find more business. They hired me to find a solution for their problem. And I found that if you do an hour interview, you're going to miss so much. And so we did a 3-hour interview, and 30 minutes of that was recorded for the client to look at the video. And clients loved it because that helped them decide from this panel of 7 or 8 people, a stack of papers. They now had a video to look at to put a face and a personality and a way of speaking and a way of answering questions with that resume. And that's why we had such great success, better than industry average success with selecting the right people. So you're going to see more rigorous interviewing going forward. Bradford Smart, back in the 80s when Jack Welch took over GE, they were really they were having a lot of turnover in the management levels, or they'd hire people and they didn't work out. And GE was a very performance-oriented company, a pretty rigorous company. And some people came into that environment and thought they understood it and didn't. So they brought in Brad Smart, and they found out that the people he interviewed and recommended for employment did better and lasted. And a lot of times the people that GE put through their own process did not. And so he came up with something called the chronological interview, and it's a behavior and values interview process. He wrote a book called Top Grading, and it has a lot of behavior and values questions in the back. So you have a take-home quiz. But it's a good book to read. Only so you can understand the process. Because if you as a candidate understand, the genesis for some of these interviewing techniques, it can be extremely helpful to you. It can help you be better prepared in terms of how you construct an answer. Now, this is where somebody says you stopped preaching and started getting meddling, or you stopped coaching and now you're meddling. Several years ago, I've told this story before, but I want to repeat it today briefly. I was pitching a deal for a really keen, neat little hospital, 150 beds, beautiful city, great reputation. The guy who built it up, he had taken it from a longtime CEO who had done a really good job, but they just took it to a whole new level. He was retiring. We knew each other. He introduced me to the board chairman. We had some very productive conversations. He said, you sound like the guy we want to hire. And so I drove down and made the pitch. But the day I came in, I had bad sciatica. I had been working out in the gym and had really agitated the sciatic nerve. And so I was limping a little bit. At that point, I've been traveling extensively. And so I was probably 15, 20 pounds overweight. And I didn't, my suit fit well. I didn't have my shirt collar done. So I, trying to hold my collar together with my tie. No, I was pretty well turned out, okay, as I always tried to do. And I got to the end of my presentation. The doctor said, well, we have something we need to ask you, and it's very important. What are you going to do? What are we going to do if you die? And I said, well, I'm not planning on it. And that wasn't good enough answer. And he said, well, we have a concern, and we need to talk about if you are incapacitated and can't finish this search, what happens to our money? What happens to the effort? And I said, well, I have other people that will take this over and will do an excellent job. I did not get the search. And later the CEO confided in me. He said, the doctors looked at you and they felt like you did not look healthy. And they wondered, if you already had some issues that, that you maybe you weren't aware of. That was very prescient because in 2022, I had open heart surgery and never had any chest pains. Was started toward the end, I was having shortness of breath and was dizzy. But that was very close to the time I had surgery. Every other time, for months and years, as a matter of fact, I was in the gym on the elliptic. I never had shortness of breath, never had chest pain, nothing. And yet my main coronary artery was 75% occluded. I dodged a big bullet. And, I didn't think about those doctors in that city in Texas until after it was all over with. And I had this compulsion to call. I don't remember their name, so I wasn't about to do that. But, they saw something. And the point I want to make here, if you are not taking good care of yourself, if you're overweight, if you're not a real sharp dresser, and let me tell you something, business casual is not an excuse to wear a shirt that's too tight for your physique and that's shrunk because you haven't taken care of your clothes. There's no excuse. I'm sorry. You gotta, in this environment, if you're an executive or a manager, your presence, how you present to customers, how you present to your employees, how you present to your boss and your board, that's really, really important. And guess what? It just got a lot more important. So you can't be sloppy and you can't be overweight. If you come in to do a job, to interview for a job, and you are, the definition of being morbidly obese and are substantially overweight, that will come back to haunt you. One of the top cancer service line people I know was about 150 pounds overweight. And he had all the excuses in the world why he couldn't lose weight. And they were just excuses. The problem is I watched him eat. He ate too much and he had the wrong kinds of food. And he talked about his favorite foods were things he could buy at Trader Joe's, which is all processed food, which is really bad for you. I used to not pay any attention to this, but when they crack open your chest, you get to have a deeply religious experience and you kind of get serious about this. But here's why I'm bringing this up. And if you're in one of our clients, you have to pay attention. Because if you don't keep yourself physically fit, if you don't keep your health in good tip-top shape, if you're not paying attention to how you look, if you're not working out and doing things to get plenty of exercise, if you're not watching what you eat, this can all come back to haunt you. When there are fewer jobs and a lot of people looking for work, let me tell you something. If you're old or if you're overweight, those are two things that they're not supposed to use against you, but you can dead bang bet on it that they will. Why? Because it's very hard to prove. It's extremely hard to prove. And so what you have to do is you have to understand the way I look, the way I talk, the way I present, that's my brand. What does it say if I come in and I can't button my shirt up because I've gained so much weight and I'm too cheap to go buy a new dress shirt? I'm a manager or an executive, but I can't even go to I won't go to JC Penney's and buy a shirt that fits. What does that say about your brand? You gotta pay attention. This is it's not nobody's going to bang the drum and say, okay, from this day forward, we're going to pay attention to how you look and how you dress and how you present yourself. No, that's not going to happen like that. But I guarantee you, it's already beginning to seep into the system, and it will become commonplace. There are laws that preclude that, but they're very difficult to prove. If you're an older person, about how many people, have said, I can't lose weight. How many people have said, I can't do it. It's just my genes. All right. I'm not a doctor. I have got a great client for a doctor and a really good guy. We have a dietitian that we're partnering with on some education. Let me tell you something. And there are very few medical conditions that keep you from losing weight. You don't lose weight because those are lies you tell to yourself. You can lose the weight. I lost almost 40 pounds. Now, the way I lost it, I don't recommend it, like heart surgery, but you can do it if you eat sensibly. Watch how many martinis you drink. That's my deal. Scotch and martinis. God, it just seems so illegal and so unfortunate that clear liquid has calories. But anyway, you just have to pay attention to these details. These little things are going to trip you up, and it's already beginning to come into the system. Yes, there are laws that protect you. Yes, you can file a suit, but it's unless you just have a blatant case, you're not going to win. And now you're tainted because you sued an employer or a potential employer. And in some industries, that's the kiss of death. So pay attention to this. Start thinking about how you can eat better. Bonnie Barabee of Barabee Consulting in Houston, who used to run all the dietary operations, including dietitians for Herman Memorial, now called Memorial Herman. When I was there, it was Herman Hospital. It was a teaching hospital for UT, a 900-bed facility. Bonnie is putting together some courses and to help people in job searches, help executives, with useful programs. Some will be enrollment programs. Some will be just free advice, free examples of how you can eat more effectively. She's funny as hell, great person. She has an associate, Sarah Boo, and we're really excited about getting these things launched. It's probably going to be late November, early December before we get launched with that. And it's going to start off with, first of all, just a dietary assessment. But the thing is, it gives you a baseline. This is something like the rest of your career you can manage. Okay, you don't need to have a trainer and all this other stuff. I mean, if you want to, you have the money. If that helps you, great. But if you need to do a better job in what you eat and how you exercise and what types of food and how you balance it, this will be the kind of information to help you. And we have talked to candidates over the years, and they all say when the outplacement office is closed and they didn't have a place to go every day, one guy said, the worst thing about working from home, looking for a job, is it's really hard to stop when you pass the refrigerator not to open it. Okay, sometimes people gain weight during their search. You can't afford that anymore. So I just did what Donald Trump calls the weave. I apologize, but because I wasn't prepared to really had slides talking about that today. But anyway, pay attention to those details. I said earlier, these things are going to trip you up, and they will. One of the other issues is ageism, and but let me tell you something. Unlike if you're fit, if you look good, dress well, if you have energy, you also have something else that the younger people don't have. And that's a lot of experience. You have a lot of accomplishments. You have a lot of advantage. And you got to learn how to leverage that. Okay. But just knowing it doesn't help you. You can't expect the client to look at your resume and say, oh God, this guy's got a lot of experience. We'll be able to tap into that. He'll be a great hire. No. That doesn't work that way. If you expect an employer to do the math and get the right answer, you're going to be pissed off and really disappointed about 90% of the time. Don't do that. You want to leverage what you have. And we work with clients now, teaching them how to use their age and then how they have to change the way they present, how they have to change the way they interview, how they have to change the way they manage their brand. You have to do it more aggressively, and you have to do it better than everybody else. But if you do those things, if you leverage those things, you can have a chance for great success. So I hope you take that to heart. CEOs are quietly embracing the productivity of AI. You hear a lot of people say, nah, I heard the CEOs and said, it's not going to take jobs. It's not going to take your job. It's just going to make you more efficient. Well, that's a large load of, you know what? Let me tell you why they're saying that. Because they don't want their employees to get nervous and start looking for other jobs. They're going to keep them lying to them until they say you're gone. So, you have to do your own homework. You have to be responsible for you, whether you're an executive or a manager. I mean, it's going to have what we call trickle up. Okay. There are going to be people who at the lower level lose their job first, and then the supervisors that oversaw those lower levels are going to be let go. And then they're going to realize they don't need as many managers to supervise those people that don't exist anymore. Then there will not be as many managers. And oh, by the way, Vice President, since we don't have that many managers anymore, we can get rid of 3 of the 4 of you guys. That's called trickle up, AI trickle up. And that's what's going to happen. Again, Mark Cuban says 5 to 10 million jobs within 10 years this is inevitable. So how you position your career, that's why it's important to pay attention today. Paying attention to the little things is part of building a strong foundation. If you're in an exposed area, then you need to start planning today to think about how you're going to move, whether it's going to be changing careers or whether it's going to be, moving to a different element within within your vertical, doing something a little bit different. So that may require some education. It may require some additional certifications, but you can do that. I mean, if a certified mechanic can go to medical school, graduating at age 51, and become a really quality physician I think works in one of the Cleveland Clinic hospitals, you can do that. You can get yourself prepared to make a career transition if you're paying attention. So here are some actionable steps you can take. We've kind of been throwing these in as we went. You gotta develop a career plan based on all realities with options for the future. Lower level managers, really you're the most immediate risk. You got to focus on the details, your health, your presence, your professional development, your networking. You've got to enhance your brand based on sustained superior performance, and you have to adopt or die. If you do not adapt, you're going to be in a really serious situation. And I think the other thing I want to really talk to you about is you think the competition is bad now. Well, it's only going to get worse. And people don't, you would talk to people about this when I spent 27 years as an executive recruiter. And people don't view recruiting and looking for a job as a one-loss issue. They don't view it as a zero-sum game. But guess what? It is. That one person out of 400 is going to get the job. Okay? When you get down to the final 5, one person out of that 5 is going to get the job. So think about this. The odds were 400 to 1 when you started, or 200 to 1. The average online odds have been around 150 to 200 to 1. Okay, so you get to the final 4 or 5, and then you lose out because we're going to go in a different direction. And why did you lose out? Probably at the interview. Well, I know how to interview. I'm pretty good. I don't understand why I didn't get picked. I had all the things on my resume they were looking for. You didn't get picked because you were probably unprepared. And a lot of people think preparing for an interview is they read over the job summary several times and they kind of go through and read everything up, and then they say, okay, I'm going to be good. They don't have any stories to tell. They don't really come in and talk about their signature strengths. And when somebody says, tell me about yourself, they go off rambling about their career, where they went to school and all those other things. That's not what recruiters want to hear. They want to hear why we should hire you. Why, as a recruiter, back when I did that I want to stick my neck out and guarantee you for 3 years, tenure and performance, that you're going to do a great job. I'm not going to rely on your resume. You've got to come in and sell it, not tell it. And this is a big part of the problem a lot of people are having. We have a course now, Mastering the Art of the Interview, and it's in our Premier Gold in our master class. Premier Gold is being revised right now. The master class coaching session is up already. It's a more expensive session, really designed for executives who want intensive help. Now, we've just repackaged our mock interview, where we do a 90-minute interview and then give you the feedback that people complain they never get from recruiters. Well, I'm a former recruiter, and believe me, I will give you feedback. And this costs $245, and you have basically 2 sessions. That's a great bargain. If you're a member, you get a lower price. You get a 40% discount. Our membership we're repackaging that and coming forward. It's an enrollment fee of $250, I think, and it's $79 a month. But you get 40% discounts on all the courses you buy, and you get you get access. These sessions now, once we reach our targets on our membership, will be members only. So we have a Facebook page, and you won't be able to see these unless you're a member of the Facebook page. And to get to the Facebook page, you're going to have to be a member of our organization. So what we want to do is build a community, okay, where people can share experiences and talk about their own experiences of looking for a job and what they learned, what worked for them and what didn't work for them. And, people get down in the dumps, and as a group, we can help each other out. I have a lot of information. I've been in this business a long time. And I, taught the interviewing course for 10 years for a global professional association. But it's the strength comes not just from me, it comes from the community that comes in to support one another. And we hope that you'll consider doing that. And as we offer more courses and more opportunities, as a member, you will get substantial discounts. So that's just something I wanted to say. But let me close this by saying this. If you're losing job opportunities because you do all this hard work and you get to the goal line and then you fumble the ball, that's crazy. You got to decide you're sick and tired of losing. And the only way you're going to do a better job, the only way you're going to break through is if you just get really pissed off and say, blankety blank blank, I'm tired of this blank, and I'm not going to do this anymore. And I'm going to take the steps to become a better interviewer. Now, most people say, well, I'm pretty good at interviewing. Well, from somebody who interviewed 9,000 people plus over 27 years, I can tell you this. Most people are average. A few people are good, and fewer still are good, are really great. So most of the people we're dealing with are just average. They don't really have packages. They don't really have a system, a sense of stories they can tell to illustrate their successes. And so, they don't interview as well. So who gets the job from that 5? It's the person who did the best job, the most compelling job at communicating their value. So what we do is we take people who are tired of losing and we try to make you winners. And this boot camp that we're putting, not a boot camp, it's I guess you could call it that, is going to be 2 months of weekly one-on-one coaching, mock interviews, and a lot of practice answering questions. And then I will tell you a better way to answer the question. And the people who've worked with me in the past say it's been really helpful. So this will be published. I'm not sure when it's going to clear out and be published online, but it's going to be shortly. So keep an eye out. If you remember, there'll be an announcement for the members sent out by email. So if you're considering thinking about, that kind of course, think about $245 and take 40% off. And, we're going to make money. Believe me, that I've got the light bill to pay and a chief financial officer that we've been married for 29 years, and she assures me that we better make money. So I appreciate you guys being here. I know we had a few people today. Most of this will be seen on replay because it's at a time of the day some people can't always come to the for and see this, come to their computer and see this. It's kind of not the kind of thing you want to watch at the office. So it'll be available tonight on YouTube replay and also on our company Facebook page, which is johngself.com. I really want to thank you for joining us today. If you have ideas that you think we need to talk about, ideas that you think would help us communicate this information, I'm really open ears. I love to learn, and this is all about ideas. And so it's an interesting journey. One of the great joys in life is that I've gotten to do some great things. I've had a career that I could never replicate in today's environment, but I've been very blessed to have a great career. And I'm just can't believe how lucky I am this is my capstone, and I'm going to probably work another 5 or 10 years, and my health of it, cooperating. And so, I do something I love. And what's really helpful, what's really gratifying is to know that you're really trying to help people to have a better life, to have a more rewarding career, to be in a job they are happy with, that don't suffer from the Sunday night depression because you got a jerk job, bad boss, and you're not enthused about what you're doing. And don't worry, don't feel bad. You're probably part of 70% of the rest of the workers in the United States if you look at the Gallup survey. So thank you all very much. We're going to play a short video now about ageism to kind of get you thinking about how you can, it's more of a theme. It's more of a theme thinking about, you don't have to give up just because you've reached a certain age in your life. You're going to have to take care of yourself. You're going to have to maintain your energy. You're going to have to maintain your presentation, but we can help you.
Don't give up, 'cause you have friends. Don't give up, proud of who you are. Don't give up, you know it's never been easy. Don't give up, 'cause I believe there's a place where we belong.
There is a place, and you can be there. You can achieve what you really want to achieve in your life, even though you're 65. Ageism discrimination by law begins when you're 45 years old, believe it or not. And so this is something that you can overcome this, and we can help you do that. So just take that to heart. Don't feel like that you're going to be forced out, because if you want to, there's a contribution you can make. I want to thank all of you today for being here. I hope you'll join us tomorrow night. If you're a TikTok person, I'll be live on TikTok with your career questions. Last week, I think we had 400 people come in and ask questions. And then Friday morning, Career Live, we're going to be talking about some issues on career management. Again, it's a 30-minute program at 11 a.m. on Friday. So thanks so much, everybody. Appreciate you being here, and cheers.